Battle Through the Heavens God, the Flame Emperor Chapter 21, Conquer the Ghost, the terrifying power of the Golden Dragon King. The next thing is to conquer it. The Golden Dragon King looked at the huge ghost in the sky that was condensed by many soul bodies. The corpse control method of the corpse demon family has a dot on the forehead of the ghost. That dot is not easy for ordinary people to find, but it is the biggest nemesis. The corpse control method of the corpse demon family is also extremely perfect, but I have dealt with them a lot, and the only drawback is also known. The corpse control method is originally a magic circle, and the eyes of the circle force all souls together. See, the shadow in front of me is also unbearable. The Golden Dragon King said to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan tried his best to use his soul power to look, but he didn't find the so-called formation eye on the top of the ghost's head. It seems that the formation eye should be hidden. It takes an accurate attack to make the formation point appear. Xiao Yan had a plan in his heart. He used his destructive energy, surrounded himself with heavenly fire, and attacked the ghost. Although the evil aura emanating from this phantom was stronger than the aura of the man in black, even if it reached the level of a 4-star Dode, the phantom was too cumbersome and had no wisdom at all. It's like a slaughtered war machine. Xiao Yan dared to fight against it. The huge ghost in the sky constantly exudes an evil aura. In this small space, wherever the ghost go, the trees wither rapidly, leaving no leaves behind. Great Heaven's creation palm. Xiao Yan looked at the shadow that was getting closer, and walked away with one palm. A huge energy palm print whizzed away at the ghost, and the heavenly fire slowly surrounded the palm, attacking away with the slightest sound of breaking wind. Ho. The huge ghost was waved and the energy palm print was dissipated, but the flames of the heavenly fire did remain on the ghost's hand. When Xiao Yan launched the attack, he deliberately avoided the blind spot of the ghost's vision. Although Xiao Yan himself knew that the heaven's creation palm of the Tian-class Do skill could not cause too much damage to the creature in front of him, that was comparable to the 4-star Dode, but I didn't expect that the defense and reaction of this phantom would be so terrifying. Xiao Yan's attack seems to have attracted Mo Ying's attention. Mo Ying just wanted to attack Xiao Yan, but unexpectedly the heavenly fire on Mo Ying's arm was burning violently, and Mo Ying let out a roar. It was a lot of damage, but Mo Ying's clumsy body was helpless with this heavenly fire. He hurriedly looked at Xiao Yan with fierce eyes, and his eyes seemed to devour Xiao Yan with hatred. Master, the flame has already attached to the arm of the ghost. What should I do next? It turned out that his master, the Golden Dragon King, secretly told Xiao Yan just now that as long as the flame was attached to the arm of the ghost, the next is to hand it over to the Golden Dragon King. Leave it to me, take a good look at it. Although your heavenly fire is not a holy flame, it is not much different. From what I can see, your heavenly fire is the same as the holy flame. Restraint. Looking at Mo Ying and Xiao Yan explained. Leave the control of your body to me for the time being. The Golden Dragon King said to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan immediately understood the meaning of his master, and did not obstruct him, letting Jinlong's soul control his body. Hey, I haven't encountered the corpse demon clan for many years. Xiao Yan's voice seemed to be slightly different, and then he didn't care about the huge ghost in front of him. The huge breath slowly woke up, and the breath of the ghost in front of him was one in the sky and one in the ground. Yuuru in the distance couldn't stand the evil aura emanating from this huge ghost for a long time, so she passed out, but fortunately, Xiao Yi was there to take care of her. You were all strong men in my world before, when you were alive. Unfortunately, you were killed by the demons, but your souls are still being driven by the demons. Are you willing? You must have vividly remembered the many injuries caused by the evil races from outside the realm to the thousands of souls in my world. Are you willing to help the tyrants in this way? Does the dignity of your strong man allow you to do this? The different Xiao Yan roared at the huge shadow in the sky, exuding an aura that was no less than the aura of that shadow. When Xiao Yan roared these words, a huge ghost in the sky that was supposed to attack Xiao Yan suddenly changed. The originally aggressive ghost figure was covered with many soul bodies. After Xiao Yan said those words, there was a trace of rationality from the depths of his soul. Xiao Yan's seemingly simple roar contained a huge amount of soul power, which was directly transmitted to the depths of every enslaved soul through the power of the soul, so that the last trace of reason in their hearts and the dignity of the strong soul were instantly stimulated. Come out, break free. Many souls roared furiously, as they shouted. The many souls that are covered on the ghost-like scales are violently resisting, trying to get rid of the enslavement of the ghost. Many souls are constantly breaking free, like scales are about to fall off, but the ghost also knows this situation, and let out a long roar. The soul that was about to break free is taken control. In an instant, more and more soul bodies began to break free and escape, although they also knew that even if they escaped the enslavement of the ghost, they would not miss the chance, but the feeling of being enslaved by the demons felt like a great shame to them. Whose strong soul is willing? The soul bodies looked at Xiao Yan's direction one after another, as if they were asking for help from Xiao Yan, because they were not willing to be enslaved by the demons. It's time to end this. Xiao Yan stood up and clapped the dust on his hands. The Golden Dragon King controls Xiao Yan's body. The reason why he wants to awaken the rationality and unwillingness of these souls is to clean up the ghosts, and to make these enslaved souls prepared to devour later. Many souls from the huge ghost in the sky resisted violently, and it looked like scales were about to fall off, because they also knew that if they didn't took this last chance, they would be enslaved by the demons for the rest of their lives. They are a strong man before in the world, how can they let the demon to enslave them? Xiao Yan looked at the huge ghost in the sky that was taking care of itself, raised his hand, and lightly touched the top of his head. Break! A loud voice came from Xiao Yan's mouth. A seemingly small beam of light attacking the huge ghost in the sky, but the seemingly small beam of light actually contained an ancient and terrifying power. Bang bang bang! Several explosion-like sounds came from above the head of a ghost, and the ghost that was still screaming in the sky and exuding an evil aura was unexpectedly fatally struck by Xiao Yan. Due to the beam of light, the shadow was sluggish for a moment, because the eye of the formation was destroyed. Obviously, this demon corpse was solved. The ghost in the sky festered, and countless souls poured out of the unsightly body. They all bowed to Xiao Yan, and they were very grateful to Xiao Yan for saving them. Now it's up to you, whether you can refine them or not. After the Golden Dragon King finished speaking, he gave back to Xiao Yan's control of his body. Xiao Yan was too lazy to be distracted by this almost slaughter-like situation. He lowered his head and looked at the huge shadow above. With the palm of his hand, the heavy black ruler flashed out, and immediately slashed at the shadow. A huge flame of hundreds of feet burst out, directly splitting the ghost, revealing countless black chains entangled in it, and at the end of those chains, there are countless soul lights hanging. Chapter 22. Get the essence of the soul again. Looking at the thousands of soul bodies, Xiao Yan couldn't help but bunch his eyebrows from the corners of his eyes. These members of the demon race are just like the Hall of Soul. They are completely taking advantage of other people's power, to capture soul and swallow them as nourishment, or as an energy provider for corpse control. Simply inhumane. Xiao Yan waved his palm lightly, and the terrifying strong wind blew like a gust of wind. At this moment, he slowly opened his eyes and looked around weakly and blankly. He just fused with the ghost and became fat and consumed their few strengths. Feeling that the chain that originated from the soul was broken, and finally there were waves of extremely ecstatic soul fluctuations. Although they didn't know exactly when it happened, they felt a sense of freedom. How many years? They were locked up like prisoners in a dark space with no sunlight, and now they are locked in a shadow, and sometimes even death has become an extravagant hope. Let's all go, don't let the demons catch us again. Looking at these souls who were almost in tears with ecstasy and excitement, Xiao Yan also sighed softly. In the sky, countless souls were entrenched, and in the end, they all knelt down to Xiao Yan and bowed to him, but not a single soul left, but looked at Xiao Yan silently and motionless. Countless souls are also aware that the essence of their souls has been eroded by the demons, and it is impossible for them to return to normal after going out. Seniors, my Dakian world is at odds with that demon clan. I hope the seniors will help me. The kid must do his best to protect the Dakian world. Xiao Yan is not stupid either. Looking at the countless soul bodies in the sky while talking silently, he bowed deeply and roared. The countless souls in the sky first stagnated for a second, and they immediately understood that the man in front of them not only saved them, but also possessed the wonders of heaven and earth such as the fire spirit, and then the overwhelming sacrifice was like that. With the plan, The tens of thousands of soul bodies in front of Xiaoyan all turned into pure forces and gathered into a light group that stayed in front of Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan frowned slightly and looked at the light group. From the light group, he felt an extremely terrifying soul fluctuation, and this fluctuation was extremely pure, without any impurities. This is the essence of the soul. Xiaoyan remembered that he also captured a soul essence when he was in the Hall of Soul in the Dochi continent. I'll show you something after you go out. It should be the secret treasure, why the man in black killed the Mu family. Behind Xiaoyan, the voice of the Golden Dragon King came. He turned his head and saw that the ladder was also floating from the sky. Next, I will go to that big pit left by the man in black to find something. The essence of the soul. Xiaoyan muttered slowly in his mouth. Now, he naturally understand this, and he doesn't care what the Golden Dragon King said. The soul is the root of all beings in the world. All things in the world have souls, and deep in the soul, there is a trace of soul essence. This is the root of the power of the soul. What a strange energy. Don't worry, I will take revenge for you. A gentle word, but suddenly caused the soul light group to release a faint luster, vaguely, as if a lot of information was transmitted from it. Xiaoyan silently accepted the information. There were too many strong soul essence in the soul light group, but there was no spiritual wisdom in it. Some were just resentment left before they died, some are these emotions. It is quite difficult to refine them completely. If they are absorbed indiscriminately, they will inevitably affect the mind. But Xiaoyan's words just happened to quietly dispel these hidden negative emotions. This is another kind of consolation of wisdom from the soul essence. They were all powerhouses in their lifetimes. Even if they died, using the power at the end will make it difficult for the people who killed them. Although it seems easy to refine them, at least those people from the demon race will never say this, and they also know that Xiaoyan will help them kill their murderers. Sit down cross-legged and carefully integrate our soul essence. How far you can achieve depends on your fortune. The soul body in the sky seemed to be talking to Xiaoyan. Thank you, seniors. Xiaoyan also sat down cross-legged when he heard the words, adjusting his state to absorb the purest soul power. Xiaoyan sat cross-legged on a flat ground. In front of him, there's a light group about 100 meter-sized lightly suspended. A soft and pure luster continued to refine out of it, shining on the surrounding grass blades, making those surrounding grasses that had been depleted instantly turned lush and green. The power of this soul essence is really pure, but it's really hard for these seniors. Xiaoyan murmured. Xiaoyan stared at the soul light group, let out a sigh of relief, and immediately stretched out his palm and touched the light group. With this contact, Xiaoyan could feel the vastness that filled the soul light group. This is the power of the soul essence? This feeling, even Xiaoyan reached the distate soul level, it can't help but make the soul between his eyebrows feel extremely warm. Distate souls are divided into 4 levels: entry level, immortal level, transcendence saint level, and consummation level. The Golden Dragon King said slowly. While the soul light group slowly fluctuated in Xiaoyan's absorption, and bursts of crisp sounds like water splashes came from the free spirit cover, and the power of the soul essence was continuously injected into Xiaoyan's soul. Under such profusion, a faint intoxication appeared on the face of the small figure formed by the soul above Xiaoyan's head. Under the wrapping of these soul essence, he felt that his soul was like being surrounded by infiltrating warm light. Layers of faint strange crystal quietly emerged on the surface of the soul, and when you looked at it faintly, it was like a real human figure, extremely miraculous. This is the power of the distate soul realm. The layers of faint strange crystal are actually protective layers that can resist soul attack, quietly appearing on the surface of Xiaoyan's soul to protect his most vulnerable soul. In the soul light group, there is an extremely terrifying soul source power. These source powers were only condensed from the millions of soul bodies captured by the man in black. Before such a vast soul source, even Xiaoyan, it's a tiny feeling of insignificance. Crash. As more and more soul essence were absorbed by Xiaoyan, circles of invisible fluctuations, also centered on Xiaoyan, slowly spread out. It suddenly became silent, and an invisible coercion spread instantly. Has the refinement been successful? Chapter 23. Moon Home. Boom boom boom. After those senior soul essence light clusters almost disappeared, all the light clusters also merged into Xiaoyan's body, and the small space that was originally isolated by the men in black also trembled violently. Bang! The other dimension began to slowly shatter. Xiao Yan has long since woken up and quit the cultivation state. All the energy of the soul essence he absorbed before is stored in his soul realm, because the Golden Dragon King and Xiao Yan just said. Xiao Yan himself is also clear that it takes a lot of time to absorb the soul essence to improve the strength of his soul. We can go to Yueru's house to find a safe place to refine it, otherwise the soul will be severely damaged, and the loss will be more than we gain. Immediately, Xiao Yan also absorbed the soul essence and store it in the soul realm to make plans. Seeing the immediate crisis resolved, Xiao Yan couldn't help but take a deep breath. It seems that this time, I will go to Yueru's house to deal with her problem, and went for a retreat well, devoured the remaining soul essence and practiced some Do skills. Otherwise in this continent, where the strong are like clouds, it's impossible for me to walk freely at all. No wonder he thought so. After all, the enemies Xiao Yan encountered these times were too powerful, and there were very few ways to deal with them. With a plan, Xiao Yan also stepped forward to use his soul power to awaken the two girls. Qing Yuan was obviously trying his best and exhausted her doqi. She couldn't wake up in a short time, and she was still in a coma. With the help of Xiao Yan, she slowly woke up. Just woke up and saw a big hole in the distance, and hurriedly asked Xiao Yan, that man in black should be the murderer who killed the Mu family in our Qingcheng recently, but what about the monster behind him? How did you solve it? What? In the face of Yueru's asking many questions, Xiao Yan also suffered from a headache. He couldn't say that he killed it himself, so he could only prevaricate and say, I don't know, just when you passed out, that monster's body twitched for a while and then froze. It exploded, but it was indeed dead. Yueru naturally wouldn't believe Xiao Yan's nonsense, but after the immediate crisis was lifted, she couldn't care less about these doubts, and the top priority was to save her father. With a sound of bang, the original small space was instantly shattered, and the scene of people coming and going on the street was restored. Yueru walked in the front and led the way. Xiao Yan followed behind with Qing Yuan in his arms. Strangely, when Xiao Yan was holding Qing Yuan, he felt that his doqi and even the strength of his soul in his body were recovering very quickly. Xiao Yi also didn't want to go back to Xiao Yan's body, so he changed it a little and become a little girl appeared to follow Xiao Yan, but she went back unwillingly under Xiao Yan's warning, with an unhappy expression on her face. Along the way, even if Yueru had just experienced a life or death moment, she seemed to lead the way calmly, because she also knew that her father's time was running out. Those who disagree will take the opportunity. The consequences are unimaginable. Before arriving at a street in the Yu family mansion, Xiao Yan and Yueru also made a plan. After entering the courtyard, they would act separately. Yueru took Qing Yuan to the lounge to rest, and then she came over to meet Xiao Yan, and they went directly to the destination, and then slowly walked towards the huge palace not far away. On the way, Yueru told Xiao Yan that their Yu family is not peaceful now. In other words, there are some conflict in the Yu family. Only few people knows about her father's severe injury, so the treatment is also to be done secretly. Approaching the extremely majestic mansion, Xiao Yan was surprised to see that there were many people crowded at the door, and these people were all dressed in the robes of alchemist, with a few strands on their chest. The dazzling silver ripples proudly displayed their identity and rank. These are the juniors of our family, and you are of course, not worth mentioning. Yueru also saw an alchemist at the door and said, on the streets where people come and go, all passers-by who pass by will turn their envious and awe-inspiring eyes to the group of alchemists who whisper to each other. In their hearts, an alchemist are a kind of noble, a profession like an aristocrat. Follow me. Yueru took Xiao Yan and Qing Yuan into the Yu family compound from a small path. Xiao Yan also knew that Yueru was obviously doing this to avoid the clan disagreement about which people arranged in the Yu family compound. Miss, you're back. Just after entering the gate, a pretty maid hurriedly walked out from the side, and then said a few words to Yueru in a soft voice. Yueru took Qing Yuan and separated from Xiao Yan, and the maid lead Xiao Yan the way. Following behind the maid in a hurry, Xiao Yan's eyes swept across this luxurious mansion. The towering and magnificent buildings made him nod slightly in secret. Leaving aside other things, this Yu family is indeed worthy of Qingcheng. One of the three major families, Such wealth is definitely beyond the reach of ordinary people. While walking on the path made of cyan gravel, Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly narrowed slightly. In his sense, since he entered the depths of the Yu family, his soul sensed a mysterious and powerful aura, hidden in every corner. He raised his head inadvertently, and glanced casually over an eaves, where some dark shadows, hidden in the darkness, were painted black, covering the sharp arrow tips reflected by the sun, slowly moving. Moving in the mansion, any slight disturbance will make them deliver the attack in an instant. The defense is indeed very strict. Xiao Yan frowned and slightly shook his head helplessly. He looked up at the luxurious hall that appeared at the end of the trail. There was a faint sight of a person standing among them. Father. Just as Yuuru took Qing Yuan to rest, she hurriedly ran over to meet Xiao Yan, and asked the maid to leave. Yuuru was left in a quaint room with Xiao Yan and a man with a middle-aged, whom Yuuru called father. Yuuru, are you back? The middle-aged man's loving voice sounded. Well, father, I brought back someone who can heal you this time. Yuuru pushed Xiao Yan and said. Xiao Yan could see that this girl, Yuuru, was very close to her father. My pain won't get better, so you don't have to work so hard. The middle-aged man shied away, but he was very relieved, because his daughter kept finding people to heal him, although it was all unsuccessful. His heart felt please. This little friend, the old man Yuyu said, since he came to my Yu's house, please ask this little friend to show me. The middle-aged Yuyu looked at Xiao Yan, who was brought back by his daughter, and looked carefully, but found that the young man in front of him doesn't seem to be that simple. Even with his own strength, he doesn't seem to be able to see through it. Xiao Yan looked at the middle-aged man who was a little yellowish in front of his eyes, and was very sick. He murmured to himself, 5-star Dode? He really deserves to be the head of the family. Then Xiao Yan stepped forward, and summoned Xiao Yi instantly. Get ready to see what Yuyu said about the incurable pain of non-fire spirits. At the moment when the fire spirit Xiao Yi was summoned, the temperature in the originally mild room instantly increased a lot, and Yuyu's originally bland eyes suddenly opened and said with his voice, it's actually a fire spirit. Chapter 24, Detoxify. Yuyu's exclaimed voice immediately turned to look at the milky white terrifying high-temperature flames in front of him, and when he looked at his daughter Yuuru, a trace of relief appeared. When I went to the Beast Mountain Range, to hunt monsters, I was accidentally injured by the 9 Serenity Fire of a 9 Nether Sparrow, that was comparable to the level of a 6-star Dode. Inextinguishable. I have used many methods but can't remove the traces of flames, and that flames will devour my vitality. Today, I have no time left, even if I read many ancient books to find a cure. Just to have a glimmer of hope. It is rumored that the fire spirit or the holy flame is the king of flames in the world, and getting one of them may hopefully cure this 9 Serenity Fire. The middle-aged man in the room who was originally on the bed stared at Xiao Yi. Little friend is really amazing. You can actually possess such a rare thing as a fire spirit. If that's the case, then this old man's life will be handed over to your little friend. Let's say goodbye to life and death, don't worry. A decisive voice came from the house. Xiao Yan slowly approached the side room, and a faint soft light was coming out. Xiao Yan gently pushed open the door of the outer room. The inner room had quite a lot of space. In the center, a large bed was placed in it. A middle-aged man with a dry face was lying on it. Around the bed, several maids were waiting. Hearing the sound of the door, they cast their gazes and hurriedly walked away. Slowly approaching the big bed, Xiao Yan swept his eyes on the bed, and found that Yuyu's face was faintly covered with a large gray-black color, and there was a hint of death on the quiet face. It's really serious, Xiao Yan said in a low voice, glancing at the middle-aged man's face where he almost stepped into the grave with half of his feet. Yeah, this kind of fire poison that can devour life force, I am afraid that even a 6-star Dode powerhouse would not dare to easily mess with it. Father can survive so many years, and he has reached the limit. Behind him, Yuuru also looked at the person in front of her with distress. Shaking his head, he immediately said cautiously, Xiao Yan, please do your best to save my father. Yuuru's eyes were a little red, and her voice seemed to be much hoarse. Don't worry, it's not a big problem, I'm going to start now. Be careful not to let anyone disturb me. Xiao Yan also agreed, and then said to Yuuru, the poison in front of me can only be eliminated by wrapping the heavenly fire in Yuyu's body with soul power, so it needs a quiet place that will not be disturbed by others. On the side, Yuuru nodded slightly. She knew very well that a large part of the reason Xiaoyan would help her was because of the chairman of the Alchemist Association. A pair of bright eyes stared at the tall, indifferent young man beside him. I don't have any other way, so I can only follow the method you said, Senior. I will use the flame power of the fire spirit to enter to your body, and then slowly expel the fire poison. Xiaoyan looked carefully and shook his head. He shook his head, calmly. In that case, the danger should be great, right? Hearing this, Yuuru whispered slightly hesitantly. Less than 50% certainty. In the quiet house, Yuuru seemed to be talking in a low voice, occasionally turning her eyes to the two people beside the bed, and as time passed, watching the sweat dripping down her father's face and the blue veins on her arms. Throbbing. Yuuru's eyes showed some anxiety. It wasn't that she was afraid that Xiaoyan would burn her father, it was just that this method of eliminating poisons made Yuuru feel distressed. My father has suffered too much in taking care of this family, and now he is suffering from such deep pain. How could Yuuru not feel distressed? Xiaoyan's face was still calm, the fingers on Yuu's back trembled slightly. The faint milky white flame was constantly enveloped by the power of the soul, and then cautiously entered the latter's body, gradually using the high temperature to expel those poison in his body. That was invaded by the 9 serenity fire poison attached to the bones. The milky white flame is wrapped around the black bone. Although the two seem to be close to each other, but if you look carefully, you can find that there is a very small gap between them. The temperature of the heavenly fire is too terrible. If it comes into direct contact with Yuu's bones, even if the opponent is a strong Dode, he will definitely be seriously injured or even die in an instant. The fiery high temperature penetrated from the flame, and then slowly roasted those jet black bones. As the milky white flame continued to smoke, wisps of black mist quietly emanated from the bones, and before escaping, a cluster of milky white flames swooped in, wrapped it, and took advantage of the terrifying high temperature to gradually eliminate the poison mist, which even the strong Dode had to treat it seriously, but was smoldered and turned into nothingness. However, when Xiaoyan used the heavenly fire to burn the black mist, he didn't notice at the moment that when the black mist was about to evaporate, some inexplicable black things turned out to be slowly mixed with the milky white flame, and immediately became completely silent. Xiaoyi, use your powerful force to get rid of them. As time passed quietly, the jet black bones wrapped in Xiaoyan's milky white flames gradually returned to their normal colors at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this time, Yuu's whole body was soaked with sweat. The middle-aged face seemed to be decades old, twitching constantly, and the sound of sucking cold air leaked out from the gap between the teeth. Refreshing? It's been a long time since I've been this lively. This little brother is really good. Yuu felt that the 9 serenity fire that had been entrenched in his body for a long time without moving, actually retreated slowly in front of the milky white flame controlled by Xiaoyan. This fire spirit is really powerful. Yuu just wanted to take a closer look at Xiaoyan, but he couldn't imagine that the 9 serenity fire in his body was squeezed into one place more and more urgently, and his fist died immediately. Squeezed to death, the blue veins swayed on his arm, like a small snake. Yuu's voice was a little hoarse and trembling. Behind him, Xiaoyan's forehead was also covered with sweat. With such a long time of manipulating the heavenly fire, using it with such a high degree of precision, was also exhausting on his soul power. Xiaoyan was still recuperating. During his battle with the man in black, his soul strength still did not return to its normal condition, and he was still struggling. Hearing Yuu's trembling question, he nodded slightly. He said softly, "Keep your breath, now I have gathered the 9 serenity fire at one point, and we're done." Yuu heard then he also gritted his teeth and pushed forward. The teeth made a slight noise, and large drops of sweat fell on his forehead, obviously how painful it is, the pain burning the bones. Puff puff. Yuu spat out a few mouthfuls of black blood, and the blood exuded a scorching temperature. As soon as it landed on the ground, Xiaoyi surrounded it with milky white flames. Ha ha ha, it's comfortable. Yuu found out from the blood he had just spit out, that it is the 9 serenity fire entrenched in his body that was also expelled at this moment. When the last ray of milky white flame was recovered into his body, Xiaoyan breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, and said with a smile, "The 9 serenity fires have been eliminated, and you will recover after a few days of recuperating. Father. Yuru saw that her father's face had regained some blood, and she did not care about Xiaoyan's existence in this room. She swooped on her father who had just escaped danger, and instantly burst into tears. Father, I said you'll be fine. Do you think it's